everyone. Welcome to Open Line. Glad you're with us tonight. It is Wednesday, June 24th. We have plenty to discuss. We're talking tonight about, are the protests here in Tennessee producing real change? We've certainly seen a lot of protests. Protests continue even as we do this show right now. But what are the tangible changes that are coming about as a result of these protests? Happy to have with us Venita Lewis, Reverend Venita Lewis, activist. She's been around a long time and very happy to have with us her with us via Zoom. Reverend Lewis, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You helped organize that first protest, and we'll talk about all of that. But the bigger question that we kind of start to frame all of this, do you feel like these demonstrations, these protests, are producing real change here in Tennessee? What do you think?
Well, protests will always bring about change. If you go back to the Martin Luther King days, you know, the protests helped change the dynamics of the country and the world. So protests will bring about change. Absolutely.
What do you think about what you've seen?
A lot of people don't.
Oh, well, go ahead. What do you think about what you've seen here in Tennessee?
What I've witnessed here in Tennessee, and am a part of it, is the continuation of protest. Because if we stop now, we will become complacent as a state. As you are keenly aware, we've had one simple request, you know, the Nathan Bedford Forest bus, and we're completely ignored on that. We have juvenile issues. We have prison issues. We have so many systems that are stacked against the dark-skinned man that we must continue protest until Nashville and the city of the state of Tennessee understand that there is a need for change in education, in housing, the juvenile justice system, the penal system. We have issues of medical concern. Every system is stacked against the dark-skinned man. So protests will continue, and I think it will impact Davidson County and the state of Tennessee.
So do you feel like it's making I mean, I guess what would you point to as what has been accomplished? You've asked for Nathan Bedford Forrest to be removed. He's not removed. You listed a laundry list of other things, and the legislature has basically not done them. What has been accomplished, do you think?
We have been in protest for maybe, 3 weeks? What I think will have to happen is a continuation of protest. If the state of Tennessee does not change, then we will have to, and we must continue to protest. And what is different from years of being in these type protests is that we are not alone now. You see, when I was in Forsyth, Georgia with Dr. Hosea Williams, who was on the balcony with Dr. King, we took about 30 or 40,000 down to Forsyth for white America had ran all of the African Americans out of the city of Forsyth. And we went down there, but it was less than 1% who marched with us was of another ethnic background or color. But today, you see a rainbow of people across this country and in other parts of the world screaming for change inside of America. And right here in Davidson County and throughout the state of Tennessee, the protesters now are not only African American, and in most cases, we are the lesser or the least of inside of the protest. So this brings to the table to fight for change a whole different troop and a whole different group of warriors. And I can tell you one thing that I have witnessed that the young people are strong. And they are the ones who are demanding change. In the 60s, it was grown African Americans who were sick and tired of being discriminated against. But today, you have a young troop of warriors, and they will not give up.
So do you think...
So that changes the dynamics.
That does change the dynamics. So you think this will continue? You helped organize one of the first protests here in Davidson County in Nashville. I guess, I'll kind of go back to that first question. Are you frustrated there hasn't been more change? Are you surprised? Or did you expect that you wouldn't have it by now? This is going to be part of a concerted effort over many weeks, months, whatever it may be. Or would you have thought, after all the protests we've seen over the last several weeks, that there would be more change in Davidson County or in the state legislature?
Absolutely not. But what I see is resilience to stand for the change. And that's what makes the total difference. It is no way in hell that we expected 1 or 2 or 3 marches to change Davidson County or the state of Tennessee. That's why you will continue to see the protests. And not only Davidson County, not only the state of Tennessee, but America itself is on stage now. And the state of Tennessee is a part of that stage. And either we will change or we will continue to look like a country, a state, and a county who does not care about the future of children, both black, white, and other ethnic backgrounds, who are sick and tired of fighting racism, inequality, and not being free to just live. And we're not, this is not a change only about black people. It's about a change about this great country, this great state, and this great county. So it's not, the people of other colors are not coming out there to fight for us, or for black people. They are fighting for change for their future. That's a different fight than in the 60s.
If the legislature had removed the bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest, would that be enough to stop some of these protests? Or you're looking for way more than that?
Absolutely not. We have zip code 37208 with more black males incarcerated than anywhere in the United States, and we still have that problem. We have the prison systems that are filled with our people with long sentences, unjust sentences. We have gentrification that is not fair to a race of people. We have poor education. We have medical and healthcare issues. And we are in the midst of COVID, and when they talk about COVID and it impacting the African American community, they can only attribute that to underlying conditions and poor eating habits. But as an African American, we know we have had to be under stress on jobs. We have children who are incarcerated. We have fathers who are incarcerated. We struggle to get our children through a system that provides more financial backing for other schools and in the inner city. These type of injustices bring about high blood pressure, about stress, anxiety, and we have to change, because if as a race of people we do not change, we will die.
So talk about, okay,
the last
let's talk about your philosophy.
The last 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The last two or 3 weeks is just the beginning. The fight is just started.
And so your philosophy, you've been doing this a long time. We had Justin Jones on this show not that long ago, and he's young, and he's not afraid to kind of video and kind of make people uncomfortable and kind of really get in there. What is your philosophy about protesting? Is marching enough? Is it making people uncomfortable, kind of getting in there, kind of more what we've seen with Justin Jones and others? What is your philosophy about protesting? What makes it successful, and when does it go too far?
Well, it definitely goes too far when you are destroying property, when you are burning cars and all of that. That's vandalism. We're not into rioting. But to make people uncomfortable is definitely good agitation, because the soul of the black man is saying, we've been doing this too long now. And what makes me feel more comfortable and more determined is to see the young people of all races standing together. That's a whole different protest. Never in my 40 years have I witnessed such a unity. And they will get it done, because, see, I grew up, I'm a baby boomer. And most of the people in the Capitol, the legislators, they are my age and my generation. The younger group, they could care less about a Nathan Bedford Forrest bus or a Confederate flag or, you know, most of them know and are friends with some of the young people that are locked up today, that they know that they have been served a bad bill of health. So they are fighting for their friends. They are fighting for their future. They are fighting for their life. See, I went to a segregated school up until the 6th grade. My first year of integration, I was in the 7th grade. These young children have been raised all their life together. As a 3rd grade educator, I see them walking down the halls, hugging each other, kissing each other, enjoying life, and not even concerned about race. And what I think the white protesters are saying is, leave our lives alone. Let everybody have a fair chance at life, because when you have injustice to one, it's injustice for all. So they are not really fighting for black people. They are fighting for their future. They want the change because then it makes everything better for them.
How optimistic?
I'm not fighting for my generation.
Well, yeah, how optimistic are you about where we're going to be in 5 years? You know, in 3, 4, 5 years. I think a lot of people look at the situation right now and they're overwhelmed. Maybe they're not optimistic. They feel like things are so divided, so messed up. How optimistic are you? Are you optimistic at all that there'll be major changes? Will we still be this divided? Is there a chance we could bridge some of this divide and get along better? Or how optimistic are you about where we're going to be in 5 years?
I am extremely optimistic, because the young will not stop. These children are not going to stop. They are computer-wise, they are energized, they are dedicated. They have a different fight than any protest that I've been in. They are not going to stop, and they are resilient. It's amazing to me to see people of all colors standing together. It's like an aha moment that this is our America. So I support them in that they are fighting for their future. They're not fighting for black people. They won't change for their lives, because when you mistreat a young black boy that's 15 or 16 or 18, 9 times out of 10, he's got 8 or 9 friends that are of other color, that they are bleeding and hurting, and they don't understand. And we continue to try to impress upon them and push down their throats this old adage of black and white that it should have been long gone inside of America, inside of the state of Tennessee, and inside of Davidson County.
It should have been long gone, but it's not. It hasn't been long gone. And so, do you feel like we can get there? You feel like we can?
Absolutely.
And that's great. That's encouraging. We're looking at video from some of these marches, and it is remarkable. They are huge numbers. Are you concerned that it might fizzle out in a year? Let's say that you get a couple of victories. I think you may have wanted a new police chief. We're about to get a new police chief. Maybe they remove a bust somewhere, a statue somewhere. Are you concerned that the moment kind of fizzles away and we kind of go back to the way things were?
I don't think so. I don't think the young will allow that, because then they are a different breed of fighters. It's amazing to me because I don't even know and understand their strength. They are strong. They are resilient. They are united. What Justin Jones is doing down there, and predominantly all of his support mechanisms are other than black. They have a healthcare team. They have people that are there to get them out of jail. They have people that will respond to the food needs, to the materials, to the supplies. It's amazing. You know, I've never witnessed the rainbow of support.
You helped organize that first protest or demonstration. It was a remarkable demonstration. It did turn later in the evening on that Saturday night. There was some property damage. There was damage to several businesses. Several businesses were damaged downtown, and the courthouse, part of it was set on fire. What did you think as you watched that unfold after the protests that you had helped put on earlier? What did you think as you watched that unfold that night?
I was in shock. I couldn't believe it, but if you looked at the protests throughout the country, the I Will Breathe rally was the first one, and when it first started impacting across the country, the infiltrators came to try and make it look as if those who were a part of the march and rally was a part of this craziness, that we didn't have no clue that was going to happen, didn't know the people. And I think they were infiltrating to cease protests, to cause confusion. And whereas it was extremely unfortunate, not only here in Davidson County, but across this country, we must surge forward to continue to mandate and to demand change.
So you call them infiltrators? Do you think they were people trying to discredit the protest or the march? Or do you think they were people that were genuinely upset and frustrated and just expressed it in ways that you consider obviously unacceptable? Or do you think they were there with the intention to discredit what the march was all about?
Absolutely. To discredit it, to hope that it doesn't happen again. And then there may have been some frustration, you know, but I don't know. I didn't talk to any of them. I don't know them. I just know that it is not going to change the effort to continue to protest. You know, we will be looking at smaller protests. We need to change the juvenile system. We need to, you know, we are sick and tired of our men going to jail, going to prison for little of nothing, over and over and over. You know, mothers have to live without their children because some system was mean-spirited against a dark-skinned man to say, what I'm going to do is give you a lengthy sentence so that mother will have to cry for 7 or 8 or 9 years for something that if that person was white would get 6 months a walk. This is our life. We either fight now until we get change or we will die. That's where we're at now. And I think more than anything, you got some young fighters that are not going to give up.
We have seen more energy than ever, and a lot of young people involved, and it's a rainbow of people. There's no doubt about it. So as you organize protests, you organize that first one, what precautions do you take? What do you do to make sure that there, to the extent that you can, that there wouldn't be property damage or any sort of problem that would occur after your protest is over, that would be associated with your protest? Is there something you can do?
Well, what we start doing is looking for people with backpacks or somebody that's just kind of mingling in but doesn't fit. I actually think that the group of people who organize to infiltrate marches are a thing of the past. What is not a thing of the past is the protest. The protest will continue because what Davidson County or the state of Tennessee would like is the protest to be over. Let's just go back to the way things are, the way they were. And then we can't do that. We will not do that. We will continue to protest because America needs to change. It's not fair to the American flag for such injustices to continue.
All right, I'm about to take some calls.
Breed hate.
We're about to take some calls, and then one other thing I want to ask before I start taking calls, and I guess we'll have to take a break, and then I'll start taking calls. What about doing this in the midst of a pandemic? How concerned are you by that? Is it safe? You know, what are you telling people? It's important to protest, but at the same time, there is this contagious virus out there. How do you deal with that?
Okay, I'm going to tell you the prophetic side of me. I do genuinely believe that the universal forces allowed the pandemic to slow people down, to get people to off their jobs, out of their churches, out of their regular routine, to allow America of all races to see a George Floyd with a police knee on his neck as if it was a horror movie. I do believe if there was not a pandemic that we would have a white America would have just looked over it. We would be going about our busy day, and that would have been just another black man killed. So what we do in the protests, we tell people to wear masks. You know, we have different, alcohol, different things to keep our hands, sanitizers, and we continue to surge on. And I think that, until you understand that justice is not about a race, it's a spiritual movement, what is going on now, and that's a different movement. Before it was for a race of people. Now it is a standard that I think the universal God is demanding that we change. And I think when we start changing, the pandemic will change, but we have to change the way that we have been treating one another as people of God. And we are all created in His image. So why should I, as a dark-skinned woman, feel like I don't have the same rights as a woman of another color? So I think that God is in the midst of it. It's not I think, I know. And we will do what we have to do, or He will continue to bring these plagues, such as a corona, on this earth, because people need to do what would Jesus do? Or if you're a Muslim, you have whatever your religious perspectives is, the way America has been going, it's not of God.
That's fascinating that you feel like without the pandemic, this would have been a very different thing. It might have been overlooked even. The pandemic helped make this a bigger moment.
Absolutely.
And that's almost counterintuitive.
It's
Some people might think it would have kept people inside, scared to go outside, but you feel like it helped make the moment even bigger.
It makes the moment bigger because everybody had the chance to take a look at George Floyd dying. If we were busy, there was no pandemic, those who are protesting now would have been too busy to even slow down to look at a George Floyd. But the world has completely slowed down. Everything was at almost a halt. And then here come a man, the police officer on George Floyd's neck almost looked like Colin Kaepernick kneeling, but it was just a different kneel. He was kneeling, Floyd was kneeling. He was kneeling, Kaepernick was kneeling, but it was just, he was kneeling because of the injustices. The police officer was kneeling to kill a black man.
Fascinating conversation. This is Reverend Venita Lewis, a civil rights activist. We're going to take a break. We've gone on for a bit here, and then we're going to start taking calls. If you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call in, there are a few lines open, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.